how y'all doing? Let's do it to it. Alright. Let's go to the studio, our studies. How to reassess your chess. Add a chapter. Naturally, in many cases, bishops aren't contained by pawn structures and can't be removed by an exchange. In this case, they can show. Okay, let me see. Naturally, comma. In many cases, the bishop aren't contained by the pawn structure and cannot be removed by an exchange. In that case, they can really show their stuff. So basically, we're going to get to see how bishops can really get the job done in this one here. So I'm excited to see this. I always love to see the games where the bishops start dancing. Castles. 92. D5. A3. Bishop takes. Knight takes. And then B6. To get the other bishop out. B4. And then C5. Wham. This is a smashing blow. Black's last move wasn't too bright. White has the two bishops, and Black went out of his way to blast open the center. True, White's king is still in the middle, and at times opening things up to take advantage of the king's position takes precise persistence over any gains you give to a bishop pair. However, in this case, Black does not get anything going at all, and he'll experience nothing but misery once these diagonals fall into the hands of the bishops. White can't be foolish and leave his king in the middle too long. owns the long-term pluses of the two bishops and a superior pawn structure. So once his king is safe, everything should go his way. So black's got to get him moving and a grooving. Black doesn't have anything that can challenge the mighty dark squared bishop. Bishop f5. Bishop c5. Knight e4. Bishop b4. Queen d4. Black's already busted. Plus, sorry, busted. Both a7 and d5 are under fire, are weak, and mate is threatened on g7. The c3 bishop controls a1 to h8 diagonal, and is a fearsome thing to behold. Black's well aware of his predicament, and he decided to seek kingside counterplay. It's not going to work, but he might as well go down fighting. Welcoming the complex that follows. So knight takes e3. If rook takes a7, look at the complexity that follows. Of course, there was nothing wrong with playing rook takes a, rook takes a, queen takes, bishop e3, and then g3 here. And when black has effectively has no effect of a way to continue his attack at all. So this isn't wrong either. But he just wanted to go down that way. His last shot was knight takes e3. F takes. Engage. Bishop g6. Exclam. One second, let me get a drink. That was good. Bishop h5. Oops. Bishop h5. Exclam. This was a good move. But the whole idea behind bishop g6 is the natural continuation of queen takes c3, takes there, rook takes, queen takes, king h8, and then it leads to a back rank mate. Rook ad1. This was a mistake by black. There's a captivating move. Much better was queen takes, bishop takes, h takes, queen takes, king h7, rook a4, g5, queen to f5 check, king g8, queen d5 check, king h8, queen takes g5. White with an extra pawn, pressure on a7, and a threat against the enemy king, can count on victory on this point. There's also one other move. Instead of this move here, this, and then rook a4, g5, rook takes a7, queen e5, b6, rook a b1, a b8, h5 check, king, and then h3 exclam. This gives a flight square to the king and allows for potential back rank, actually potential doubling there. Rook e7, if you were thinking of taking here, rook takes g7 is an exclam. That wins on the spot. If king takes, you have check, comes back, and then checkmate. Come pow. And wins. So queen takes the bishop. Exclam. Rook takes. Bishop takes f7 check. Bishop takes. Queen takes. And then rook takes a. The mix of threat on g7 and the back rank threat leaves black without really any defense. So queen c8. Rook c7 exclam. If rook g5, rook f1 to Oops, there we go. Sorry. Here. This leaves basically almost an easy wins easily. B6 is actually a mistake here. It's a double question mark blunder. H5 and then B7, King H7. And there's really not much that could be done here. Because queen to E2 and there's really not anything. Probably here. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. Be tough to hold, but and black has nothing left to play after queen to queen to F5. King G1. Queen B8. Then rook takes G there, and it's game, set, match. This is what he says. In our last example, white had the two bishops, but the dark square bishop was the hero. Since it is not only found a home on the long and clear diagonal, but there was nothing in black's camp that could oppose it. This same idea comes to the fore when FORE when tempting the with this idea of the bishop and knight. If the knight hasn't found this is what he says, godlike support point, and if the bishop finds a clear diagonal, then the knight will often be at a disadvantage. So basically, the knight has to find a home where it makes it it's a heavenly sent home, basically. So now we're doing a time. Good. Perfect. Let's do another one. Okay. C4. G6. E4. Bishop G7. D4. Wow. Knight C3. Knight F6. Bishop E2. Castle kingside. Knight F3. E5. D5. You could take here and then take, or rook takes and grab the pawn, but then that kind of comes into the fray. And then so I'm not sure if it's worth all the chaos, but it may be. Okay. A5. Castle, kingside, 96. This is so that he can entrench a knight there and it stops the pawn push by white. Bishop G5. H6. Queen E8. 91. Knight C5. Bishop takes, bishop takes. So now getting rid of his bad bishop. Do you see what just happened here? I wanted to show you. White noticed that this bishop is really bad because of the pawns. And so what Benjamin does, Ivanov does is he exchanges, and then he exchanges off his bad light squared bishop for Benjamin's is good light squared bishop. So takes, takes, and takes. So now we have a scenario of a knight, two knights versus a knight and bishop, where if we can trade off this knight here, this bishop is really bad, the bishop on f6. And these are the judges not allowing black to retain the bishop pair, so he gets rid of that. Black's worst placed minor piece is the bishop on f6. At the moment, there can't be any talk of it. It's there can't be any talk of it being superior to a knight. Since the main imbalance is bishop versus knight, black immediately goes out of his way to make sure the bishop is active, particularly in the upcoming battle. So he plays bishop d8 exclam. What he's trying to do is get this bishop active to a new diagonal where it's good. Let me get a drink really quick and then we'll get started some more. A very elegant solution to the problem. The bishop hopes to effectively enter the game via a7 to g1 diagonal. Right here. This is where that's where the bishop would love to be. So queen e2. How he's going to do it, how he gets the job done is through this here. And then after the exchange, or if he doesn't exchange, keeps the tension, the bishop still will come in. Followed by bishop e6, of course. The bishop might be used temporarily to support d6. By bishop c7, or hit c3 after a4. Potentially, there's a lot of different things that it could do. Followed by bishop to, or if the pawn could get to this pawn can get pushed, the bishop would have this whole diagonal. If it needed to defend the pawn, it could. If it needed to go to b5, it could. b6, it could. If it needed to go to a5, it could. What's particularly instructive about Benjamin's move is that he's not going to move his bishop to a diagonal that's already open. Instead, he's going to create the diagonal. Note that back here, bishop to g5 would be moving to a diagonal that's open, and queen here, and then f5 is playable, although in that case white is a bit better after knight to d3. The side with two knights usually does well to trade one of them. The knight isn't working particularly well together, and after knight takes, queen takes, f takes, queen takes is very pleasant for the first player who owns the e4, and that's the white. His knight is a true octopus fashion, and it's basically, if a knight can get here, it's like an octopus. I think I'm pronouncing that right. With its tentacles going. Just want to make sure that I'm saying it right. Oops. Right there. So that's if the knight could get there, if the knight can get here, all these spots are open to it. That's what all the spot. That's why it's called octopus. Influence squares, all those squares. Kingside attack is more or less impossible for black to acquire, while white can easily drum up queenside play by pushing, after the knight gets there, c4 to c5. So Benjamin avoids that by playing bishop d8, and he's going to create a better diagonal. At times there won't be any ready-made diagonals available for your bishop. If that's the case, see if you can create a useful diagonal for it. That's what Joel does. Rook d1, bishop c. The bishop patiently accepts defensive role. Sure, that's defensive role. Sure, that's its glory days are yet to come. Sure that its glory days are yet to come. So it's being patient. It's not going to overextend. It's going to take a while to rebuild, and then when it does, you're good to go. queen e7, g3, king g7, knight f3, a4, h5, bishop a5. With d6 safe, it's time for the bishop to shine. The immediate a3 could potentially, a3 is an immediate threat now to undermine this knight. Rook c1, queen d7, rook f d1, rook a e8 to prepare after takes. This pawn can get pushing. King g2. This covers the knight and frees up the queen to move. And then f5, kerplunk. It is clear that black is doing well. His knight is better than either of whites. It is clear that black is doing well. His knight is better than either of whites. His bishop is already ready to munch the knight on c3 in many lines, while it's also ready to step back to b6, where combined with rook to f8, it will add pressure on f2. So e takes f. Joel, in his excellent book American Grandmaster, gave the following variation and assessments. This is actually from Joel Benjamin's own book here. So this assessment, I mean, not this is a game that he played, but this assessment is where what Jeremy Silva was talking about, that the knight should actually have gone to h4, munch, rotakes, munch, 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 and then munch. Then f4, rook d3, and then king h8. It would have been interesting to have seen after this here, probably after something like that. It would have been pretty drawish. There's also he also has another one. H takes g6, chomp, rotakes, chomp, rook e3, knight f6, with some advantage for black. Rook takes f, knight e4, knight takes, queen takes, rook e to f8, rook d3 to protect the knight, rook takes d5, and then knight to h4. G4 fails to c takes d, c takes d, rook rook to f4, queen takes f4, takes, and then queen check, king f1, or king f1, yeah, queen takes, and then rook c4. Queen f5, rook d7, or d4, g5, rook takes, bishop b6, queen c2. There's no way you could take, because if you took, then the queen would take the rook. White's just dead here. And then black just goes kerplunk. Rook takes, it's just crushing. G takes. There's queen takes. Queen f5. Rook dd1. Bishop d8. Queen h3. Check. King h1. Check. Queen g2. Queen h5. Queen g4. And then black wins after taking here. Black wins with the extra pawns. The rest of the game was basically a devastation. Let me get a drink here. Let's continue. Rook f4. Queen e2. Queen f5. c5. D takes c. C takes, oops. Let's see. C takes d. C takes d6. Bishop b6. At last, rook f1. e4. Rook to G3. D4. Queen D2. E3. Queen E1. Queen D5. Oh, it's not E4, D5. King H3. Queen E6. Both sides were in serious time pressure and were rushing to reach move 40. Naturally, if Benjamin had an extra moment to think, he would have seen rook takes H. Oops, not here. Rook takes H4. Check. Exclam. And then rook H5. Checkmate. King G2. Queen D5. F3. Queen D6. Queen takes D6, and he lost on time. His opponent lost on time. See how we're doing. I lost time, but the position is completely hopeless, so he would have lost anyways. Two knights don't work particularly well together, so exchange one of them off for either a bishop or a knight is usually a good idea. In a way, a bishop versus knight battle is pretty clear-cut thing. Let's have a look at the basics. The owner of the bishop. Make it as active as possible by placing it on free diagonals or creating an uncluttered diagonal if one doesn't already exist. 2. Prove that it performing a key function and is thus extremely useful. So you got to make sure that it proves it's performing a key function and is thus extremely useful. Steer things into an endgame where the long-range capability of the bishops gives it a huge edge over the enemy knight. So like what you'd want to have in that situation for number 3 is you'd want pawns on both sides of the board. Knights wouldn't be able to handle an open center. Knights aren't very good at handling pawns on both sides. Like in this scenario here, let's say that the two center pawns for black were gone, right? And it was in the let's say it just came down to the queens were gone, the rooks, all of it was gone, but a bishop and a knight. Surprisingly, a bishop would dominate a knight in that scenario because the pawns there's pawns on both sides of the board, and a bishop can slice and dice. One thing you got to make sure though is that your opponent can't lock them on the opposite color of your bishop. Then the knight does become good. Don't allow the enemy knight to find its way to an advanced. Don't allow the enemy knight to find its way to an advanced to any advanced permanent support point. This is called anti-knight strategies. Do your best to take away all advanced squares from the enemy knight or horse. The owner of the knight. Close the position. Closing the position is often good for your knight. So if you're down to a knight versus bishop, keep the center closed. Steer for an endgame where all the pawns are on the same color of on one side of the board. This negates the bishop's long-range capability, while applying the importance of the knight's ability to attack on both dark and light squares. 3. Do your best to create permanent advance homes or outposts, support points that your knight for your knight. 4. That was 3. 4. If a tasty support point exists, but it seems a long way way away, and or very difficult to reach, try hard to find a way to get it there. It might take several moves, but that's what moves are for, to place your pieces on their best squares so they can extend maximum effect on the board. So basically, it's you want to get your piece. Number 4 is you want to get your piece to the best point where it could be most effectively. Avoid trapping knights. Avoid trapping knights syndrome. The trapping knight syndromes. Many a knight has been lost when it found itself trapped by the enemy bishop. That'd be like if a knight was right here. If a knight was right here, the bishop could come here. Come here, and it would control this and control this, and the knight here only controls these points. So therefore, it can't. It wouldn't be able to get out. Or actually, a knight. This would be a better example. Sorry, having it here where the knight only has these points to go to, and then the bishop dominates those points of leaving. And that's kind of what they're saying. Try to avoid that on number 5. Let's look at the same idea. Let's take a look at some of these ideas. We'll do one more, and then I got a log for the night. So we have to set this one up. Let me get a drink, and then we'll get it set up. Pardon me about drinking in your ear if I am. So sometimes I get thirsty. You know how it is. Okay, this this is called an inactive knight. This is A. Biskern versus Robert Fitcher. It's black to move here. So we're going to make it a study. And the idea is inactive bishop. Inactive knight. Sorry, inactive knight, not inactive bishop. That's funny. Black's a pawn up, but it's doubled, which means he can't force a passed knight pawn. White just placed his pawn on let me see here. I'm gonna read it. I don't know if it makes sense. Black's a pawn up, but it's doubled, which means he can't force a passed kingside pawn. White has just placed his pawn on g3, and the enemy pawn can't force their way through. I think he means G. Is it G3? Huh. It says G3. So the real battle, aside from the king's position, which is always an importance in the endgame, is going to center on the bishop versus knight imbalance. At the moment the knight is attacking a7 and also has dreams of cramming itself into d6 via knight to d6 followed by e4, e5, e3 to e4 to e5, and would be impressive for black to win, since the knight would be too strong. It would be almost impossible for black to win because the knight would be too strong, white's knight. So the knight wants to actually go here, the pawn wants to go here and lock down. Fischer's move immediately addressed that issue. Bishop d7 exclam. This was a wonderfully played move. Doesn't give him much time to take advantage of the stuff. Knight takes a5 or a7. Now the bishop actually dominates the knight. So the a6 excuse me, gives black absolutely nothing, since thanks to the weakness on b6, white can gain enough time and set up counter optimum position of knight here, bishop there, e4, bishop c, and then e5, b6, b5, king f2, king e8, not e8. How is king e8? Oh, okay, my bad. After this, I think I missed a whole line. Bishop d5, g3, king there, c8, b5, king f7, or f2, king e8, king e3, just pushing, king d7, knight d6, king c, and then king d4. There's not really much that he can do on number 3. King here, g5, knight c4, b5, knight e5, bishop c8, e4, king f8, king e3, king e7, king d4. Can only make white happy since his knight has become the dominant piece, while the king position is also on white's side. Note that in the last line, king d4, the knight can swing around to c5 and do much better, where it can paralyze the let's see here, I'm thinking this is swing around to c5. Let me see, where's c5, c5, oh, basically here and into there. And then I'm going to completely paralyze black. So in the actual game, white avoided taking on a7, but he lost anyways. He played knight to d6. This is actually what was in the game. King f8, e, and e5. Fischer played that move, exclam. It couldn't be allowed, so he had to do that. There, bishop c6, c4, bishop takes, king e7, knight c4, oh, not c there, knight c4, king e6, knight e3, king e5. Fischer's just coming right up the board. King e2, king d4, king d2, bishop c6, g3, bishop d7, knight d1, king e4, knight e3, king f3, king d3, g5, king d4, bishop e6, king e5, king takes e, king takes, king f3, king f5, king g2, king takes g5, g4, b5, oops, b5, king f5, g5, oops, hold on, and then g6 check, and black, white resigned here because he's in mutual, basically Zook swamp. At this point, that's what was in the game, so we're gonna go to what was actually played here. Oops. Knight takes. b5 exclam. Freezing white's queenside, also stopping any maneuvers for the pawn or the knight to come in. King f2, f7, e2, e7, d3, d6, king d4, check, king e4, g5, h3, king e6, d3, king d5. Black's winning, though a certain amount of subtlety is still called for to increase, still called for to interest the reader. The readers should play around with it and see if they can reel in a win. So if you're interested in this, you should play around with it, set it up at the board, and see if you can pull in a win. There's one more move back on move 4 that f3 could be played here. e5, king e6, king e4, and then king e6. Amounts to the same exact thing that happened in the game. So we'll call it on this here, and then we'll pick up tomorrow, and we're going to do some more knight versus bishop. So to basically summarize everything up, when you have the knight, you have to make sure it has good outposts close to center, and try to keep the pawns all on one side of the board, so it negates the ability of the bishop to attack from one side of the board to the other. And then the knight reigns supreme on when the pawns are on one side, because it can jump from light squared to dark squared when the bishop is stuck on one color. The bishops, if you want to outplay a knight, first of all, you have pawns on both sides of the board are wonderful. Second of all, keep the position opened. Make sure the knight doesn't have any outposts, and don't let your opponent lock the pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. Otherwise, your bishop is inferior and basically worthless. And like what we found out with the knights too, the knights, two knights together really don't work as well in tandem. So what you want to do is trade off a knight, one of the two knights, for the bishop or a knight, and you'll have a better game that way. But you have to make sure that your position calls for a knight to be played, because even if not, try to lock it down, like what we're saying, trade off pawns on one side of the board so that you get all the pawns on the other side, and then your knight will reign supreme over a bishop. Okay. So there we go. I wanted to thank y'all for logging on and participating. So that was what we went over. And you know what? We have to always remember that taking what you know and being able to apply it is very important, and knowing what to do with it. But the whole point is, it's important that you receive the Lord Jesus as Lord and Savior of your life, because we all one day have to decide what we're going to do with Jesus Christ. It's the truth, and it shall set you free. That's what the Word says, and He is the living Word. So what we have to always keep in mind too is that treasure your victories, learn from your losses, and remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle the mistake that defines you as a chess player and a person in general. And that's where the Team Chess Cruncher motto comes into play, of hanging up your coats, hanging up your hats, sitting down and studying when most won't, Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus. And as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening. Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing forward and improving and getting better in our knight versus bishop end games and how to use them to their max efficiency. Remember what Hannibal Smith said: even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. Trust me, my friends, there is no randomness. Everything is for a purpose. It may at the time seem like, why is this happening? Does the Lord not like me? No, it's not that. Everything's for a purpose. You know what I mean? Sometimes when we kind of, don't feel good and we have to take a little bit of time off, we're still going to study a little bit. But it's kind of that time when the Lord wants to talk one-on-one with you. And it's sometimes the time when we only are quiet enough when we're kind of a little not feeling good to listen. So just, take those moments. I know that you don't feel good when you're not feeling good, of course. But just take those moments and listen and talk to the Lord about stuff too. And it's always those quiet moments. I remember the Meet the Robinson song, a little moment. It's called A Little Wonder. The song was really good. You have to let it roll right off your shoulders, don't you know? The hardest part is over, and when you can let go and learn, that's what it's all about. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Hoorah! Be blessed. Keep studying chess, Team Chess Cruncher, and having fun. Remember, chess is fun. Honor the Lord with your gifts and keep pushing forward. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Great job. And I hope to see you again. Okay, be blessed, and I'll see you. Bye-bye, Team Chess Cruncher. Hoorah.